Hey, what's up, guys? David Lewis here with the Catalyst Movement, and I've got a really good one for us today. I've got the amazing, legendary Marc King with us, and we're going to talk a lot of things real estate. We're going to talk a lot of things personal finance. It's going to be a good one. So, I had the pleasure of meeting Marc several years ago, and just running kind of adjacent with him and running in kind of the same circles, and I this is going to be a really good one, and he's got a lot of great insight to share. I think number one, probably Marc, you probably don't remember actually saying this directly to me, but a long time ago, you had said something along the lines of the thing that drives you is making other people successful, right? The path that you've had to create success has been through the path of creating success for others, and it really, really resonated with me and stuck with me. So for those who don't know, Marc King, tell us about you. Where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
Long story. Grew up really poor, lived in a car. So personal finance is my personal passion. Found real estate as a vehicle to earn money. And it was the one playing field. I was an athlete growing up, and it was the one playing field where I could go earn as much as doctors and lawyers without the schooling. And so, and I found there's very little traffic in the extra mile. So the more work you put in, the more systems you put in, the more you fail and learn, the better you can do. And I think to your point earlier, Zig Ziglar's quote, "Help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want," could not be more true. And that's kind of been my career. I started out as an individual agent, failed at that until I didn't. Had 13 different roles in Keller Williams over time, and most recently left the role of president in March of 2024. And now I'm living in my passion every day and helping people build wealth.
I love that. So, president of KWRI, Keller Williams is the biggest real estate company, or certainly one of the biggest. Uh, what did that look like? How big was Keller Williams when you were serving as president of
Yeah,
KWRI?
so it's the largest brand in the world. And so we had 177,377 agents in the United States and Canada. And that's fallen a little bit, but it's tattooed on my back. If you're wondering, it's an important milestone. It's the largest any real estate company's ever achieved in agent count. So that was a big win. And it's a massive organization. It's amazing human beings all over the planet, and so many. I have thousands of great, wonderful relationships from my time there, and I have most of my deep friendships came from that ecosystem, and just love it. And it taught me a lot, and super thankful for that experience.
Yeah, it's wild. I always say real estate has served a unique purpose in my life, and I've been able to do some really cool things, right? From existing in the Keller Williams ecosystem and getting to meet great minds, and the Marc Kings and the Gary Kellers, and spend time with like really amazing people, to helping build this brand and this brokerage over at LPT, and all things in between.
Mhm.
And I always say it's a really strange path for a guy who's marginally good at selling houses,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm, I'm okay at it, but it's just one of those things, right? So from you, like going on this path from individual agent to market center ownership, market center leadership, and for those outside of the KW ecosystem, the market center is the individual brokerage based on a territory and a location. From owning those, running those, to running this giant company, like what themes carried all the way through? Like what was the unchanging piece of Marc King that kind of drove from, hey, I'm selling my first house, to I'm helping a lot of people sell a lot of houses?
It's a great question. I will tell you that whether you're running the largest real estate company in the world, running a real estate team, there's a lot of similarities there. It's your relationship with your calendar. It's how boring are you willing to get? It's how often are you willing to fail? I will tell you, I've been very fortunate. I've been surrounded my entire career by amazing people. And I think I sought that out. I was the young kid in his 20s tugging on people's sports coats saying, "Will you coach me? Will you help me? Will you?" I think if there's any blessing I've had, and I'm a Southern Baptist, so we tend to carry a lot of guilt with us. So I'll tell you what I'm guilty of and what I have guilt toward, and I'll tell you what I have blessings, immense blessings from. And that is, I have been around amazing thought leaders in this industry for a long time. And so whether they were right or wrong or whatever, I watched their process. I got really good at being boring. That was a super blessing for me, because I am typically all over the place. 17 different businesses going nuts. And when I finally locked into focus on that one thing that's going to drive everything else, my world exploded. And so I think that's true no matter how big the organization is. And the number one thing that's true is the people around you will make or break you. It's that simple. But I'll tell you where my blessing is. My blessing is I have never had that gene to try and be great at things I was terrible at. Meaning, I was 27 days in, I hired an assistant. I didn't have any closings. I didn't have any listings. I just said, I'm not doing any of this paperwork stuff. This is ridiculous. And I need someone. So I'll tell you, I worked on my first 2 files myself and got threatened with a lawsuit on one of them. So my batting average was not great, all the detail stuff. So I went out and found people who were great at that. And then really, if you look back at anything I've done well, it's I've attracted amazing people. I've had, at every level, I've had amazing people around me. My real estate team, for someone who is terrible with buyers, I was pretty good at listings. I'll get your house sold for the most amount of money, least amount of hassle, least amount of time. I know my math and my numbers and my comps and all those things. So I was really good at listings. I was the worst buyer's agent you would ever deal with. And so I very quickly learned to bring on leverage in that area with people who were great at that. So I think that's probably, those are all the blessings. What I'm guilty of is everything I've ever done has started off chaotic. And I am someone who shoots and then aims later. And that will serve you well in a lot of areas. It'll also give you gray hair. I know I don't look 30 years old, but kidding. But at 51, I look back and go, man, that was a disaster until it was, right? Everything I did just went down in flames until I figured it out, until I went and interviewed the right people and put in systems and models and gave in to the monotony of the boring day to day. So that's really where I have some guilt. I could have done a lot less damage throughout my career to my health, probably by taking a little time up front, planning a little better, being more strategic, asking better questions, having better coaches. All those things would help.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but one of the biggest things is, who you surround yourself with matters. And it's the fastest way to shrink a learning curve, right? If you are surrounding yourself, if you're in year 1 and you want to do what people are doing in year 10, go hang out with people who are in year 10 and figure out, like, what do they think is important? Because I think in my world, when I was a first time agent and, now running multiple companies and helping build brokerages and all that, like, the things I think are important today, running a sales team that sells 200 to 300 homes, was not what I thought was important when I was selling the first house.
That's right.
And a lot of it should have been important in day 1. So I love that. Who you surround yourself with matters. Be purposeful about that circle. I think everyone has that heartburn over systems and tools that they wish they would have utilized in the beginning. That's amazing. So from coaching some of the greatest minds in real estate, from running like this really big company, and then we're going to want to get on the personal finance side, which is kind of your passion, building wealth for yourself and building wealth for others. And you said something which was really important to Marilyn. You said helping them keep their wealth, right? Building wealth and keeping wealth are 2 different skill sets, right? And a lot of times, like, we're not well versed in both. So, but let me ask you one more real estate question, more agent question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the qualities that make a great agent? Like, what is the thing that, like, if this, not the thing that, like, oh, well, Susie just has it, right? Not that. Like, what's the thing, what's the learned skill, the learned quality that someone could take on that would make them a great agent?
Yeah, I have actually a story and an anecdote for this, because for 25 years, I have been, on the quest to figure this question out. And I will tell you, the number one trait is being pragmatic. I've seen it over and over and over again. It's FSO, figure stuff out, right? You just got to figure stuff out. And what that means is, who are you listening to? Who are you letting in your brain? Who are you emulating? All those things. Part of my 2 quick stories, part of my role at Keller Williams was to help vet people who would come on stages. Because, at events like that, we have 12,000, 15,000 people. The minute you put someone on stage, you've created a mini celebrity. And so they're going to be emulated by anybody who sees them speak, whether they're doing the right things or not. And so one of the things that we started doing is started looking at the financials of the people we were putting on stage. And it might shock you, it might not shock you to know a lot of the top agents in this industry sell a lot of houses. And that's what we measure each other on. But they don't net what you would think they would net. And so we just ran into this spate of people. Man, I remember many years ago looking at someone who was selling 1,000 houses a year, making less than $100,000 net. And that story, unfortunately, is more prevalent than you might think. So when I think about what you want to emulate and what trait you want, that's not it. Like the number one trait being pragmatic. Number two would be, why are we all working? We're working to hopefully build a better life for our family, build a better life for our kids and all those things. And so this leads into the next topic. There's an overabundance of training on how to sell another house. In fact, I'm guilty. I wrote a lot of it. There's very little to none about how to keep more of the money you already make. And that's really what I've been focusing on for the last several years. And there's a lot more to this story, but go back to 2003. I started a local experiment where I started teaching other agents how to run their business like a business. Here's how you set up your bank accounts. Here's why you need to set up it as an LLC, elect to be taxed as an S Corp. Here's how you pay yourself a salary. Here's how you do it the right way, etc. Here's how you use credit cards or don't use them or whatever the case is. Here's how you use Section 179, put a vehicle in your business. Like all those things became something I was passionate about, wanted to learn more about. So I taught more about it. And over 20 years, that became this overwhelming passion. My wife will tell you, I am constantly studying this stuff. I have way too much data. But let me go back to one other quick story. I interviewed on the same day, the woman who won the state beauty contest that I was in to be a real estate agent, and someone from New York with a heavy accent that was a little bit out of shape, her words. Now, I bring up this story only to say, if I had to bet you my house in that moment, who was going to be a more successful real estate agent, it would have been Miss Missouri. It wasn't. Miss New York, who had a deep, thick accent with a lisp and I love her to death. And she became the number 2 agent in the board. And so I just bring up that story to say, if you're pragmatic, if you figure stuff out, if you do the right things, it doesn't matter who you are, how you were born. I think we all look at other people who are successful and go, man, they must have it easier because fill in the blank. It's not true. We're in a business where if you do the right activities and you keep going and you fail your way forward and you study and you get better and you know your market stats and you're a local real estate economist of choice and all those things happen, you will be successful. You can't help it.
Yeah, I love that. I've always said that, the real estate gods don't care.
They don't.
Right? They don't really care where you came from. They don't care what you did. They don't care that you need this check. They don't care it's just, this is there's this concept of favor, right? Like, that sometimes it's tied to religion and times to things, but like favor only comes to those who put themselves in a place to receive favor, right? It's favor falls on those who go out in the rain. Favor falls on those who go out and put themselves out there. So that pragmatic piece is really big. The one who's willing to get up, work, always wins, right?
100%. Well, Lee Trevino, one of my favorite golf icons growing up, he always made this joke, and he was a very funny man, but he still is. But he made this joke that the more I practice, the luckier I get. And it's true in golf. It's true in real estate. It's true. We could break it down to your relationship with your calendar will determine your success. That's 100% true. Your ability to get boring. I mean, there's so much success found in boring. If you just build a sphere of influence and you add to it every single day and you communicate with that sphere of influence and you study the market and you do the right things and you work every day, you will be successful in this business. The question is, how big can you be successful? And that gets into scale and other things. And I would say this too, so many of us have a 1-year horizon. I talk to people who are like, what do you think the market's going to do in 2025? I think it's going to be a great market. I think every year is a great market if you know what you're doing and if you're studying it, right? I've never had a down year in real estate. I've never gone backwards once I kind of figured some things out. Didn't matter what the economy did. Didn't matter what the market did. That includes 2008. We were the number 1 agent in our region. We were number 16 in Keller Williams and number 68 in the United States in 2008. And so I bring that up to say there is a method to the madness, and it's boring and it's consistent and it's every day and it's treating it like a job. I would rather us look at this as what is my 25-year career going to look like? Because 25 years from now, we have no idea what houses will be like or whatever the case is. But we do know if this is our career, if it's our passion, it's what we love helping people, then, next year doesn't matter. What matters is the systems and processes and calendars and all the things, people that you surround yourself with and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And I think, in the beginning, when you're a brand new agent or you're trying to figure this out, like the worst thing that can happen to you with a prospect is them to go, well, I'm going to wait till next year, or it will be 3 years before I buy. And in the beginning, like that was like a shot to the heart, right? Like, I know, but I need something now. I need a deal now. And 3 years from now, but as the business evolved and as like my career evolved and as we started running a larger team, and even so, we just got more understanding that this is not a year thing. Like, great. I'll still be here 3 years from now and I'll still be looking to help people buy, sell homes, right? Like it becomes a different mindset the more you evolve and grow.
Well, yeah, you have to cast a wider net. And I think to your point, I think when you start out, you have that one client and you're banking on that one client, selling their house, whatever the case is, you need to pay your bills. So you need a commission from that. What I've learned over time is I don't know what 5 people are going to list with me next month, but if I have relationships with 100 people, I know 5 will. I mean, it's kind of goes back to that math. The same is true in building a brokerage. In 2017, we recruited a ton of cappers to our market. So people who did 3 million in volume or more. And I think that year we were number 1 in all of Keller Williams. And so, people are like, well, how did you get to 4 cappers a month? Well, I didn't know which 4 were going to join, but I knew if I had great relationships with, if I was an attractor, if I knew all the market stats, if I led all of social media with all the right posts, and I built a reputation of being the person who knew what was going on in the market, I knew that 4 would join every single month, right? People don't join, people don't list, people don't do anything you want them to do on your time. They do it on their time. So it's about being in a relationship with enough people so that you can be there to serve them when they're ready.
Yeah, it's those activities, those leading indicators that give you the predictable analytics to know exactly what your business will be. So you can say with certainty, I will get 4 cappers a month based on because what you did 30 days prior or 45 days prior, and understanding the math around it. So that's amazing. So just to kind of recap here, we've been talking a lot about real estate success, and honestly, this is any entrepreneurial or business success, but we were talking about the importance of the leading indicators and being pragmatic, and what you look like, where you came from is never a determiner of like what your success is going to be. It's got more to do with how you approach it, who you surround yourself with, and like lots of solid advice. So let's flip the script a little bit.
Sure.
Let's talk about the personal finance side.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might think, well, I'm a new agent, or I'm new in an entrepreneurial endeavor, so I should probably stop listening here.
Yeah.
Because I need to go back and make some money before I learn about keeping my money.
Right.
Would you agree that that's a fallacy, that like there's no better time to learn about keeping your money than when you're making it or before you make it?
It's a journey no matter who you are and how much money you're making. I mean, Jeff Bezos would benefit from this conversation, although he's a little further down the road than the rest of us, right? Or Elon or whoever's up there now. But here's what I would tell you is throughout the course of your lifetime, you are going to make enough money to be wealthy, and only 3% of us end up there. And the reason, and we want to buy into the narratives that it's someone else out there, it's the man keeping us down and the rich get richer and the poor get poor. The reality is it's our own behavior and our own decisions. And I have ridiculous amount of case studies to share on this topic. The average American will make it at this point about $2.5 million in our life, but we'll spend about $500,000 on cars. They go down in value to 0, right? So we're spending 20% of our entire lifelong income on things that go down in value in cars. That's one example. But the bigger example, the number one expense in our lifetime is taxes. So no matter where you are in the income earning scale, and here's the general breakdown. If you're less than $80,000 a year, you individually, which is the median individual income in America right now, household has now climbed to 134, which is a different topic. Be careful what you listen to out there, because we're told we just don't make enough money and we can't get ahead and all these things. What if I told you you've had almost 25% raise over the last 6 years? And that's a dramatic increase in average income, right? Dramatic. You don't hear that story. Why? Because it's been overshadowed by a tad bit more than that in inflation. But our incomes have risen dramatically. So back to, if you're less than 80,000 a year, yes, we got to focus on income. We got to get our income up. That will have a bigger impact on your wealth over time. But I can show you study after study that shows once you get to that $80,000 number, it doesn't matter how much you make over that in terms of building wealth. In fact, there's a negative correlation. The more money you make, the more debt you go into. The more money you make, the more money you waste, right? There's a lot of negatives to that side of it. I want everybody to make as much money as you want to make, but we're all focused on how do we make more money instead of how do we maximize the money we already make, and how do we build passive income? How do we build our net worth? How do we build our retirement? How do we do all those things? Because when we're young, and this is what I tell my 20-year-old friends, when I was your age, I would not listen to me. So if you want to be way ahead of where I am today, listen to the old man get off my lawn stories that I have for you today, and just trust me. The one thing I did not have, David, to be super transparent, I didn't have anybody in my life that talked to me about my own wealth building until I joined Keller Williams, until I started learning some things about passive income or whatever. The only way out of my neighborhood was drugs or sports. I picked sports because I'm not good at drugs. And so because of that, I didn't have mentors around me that were sharing this with me. And I'm not sure I would have listened if I had. So it wasn't until my 30s where I really started to get some advice, and some good, some bad. Lost everything in 2008, like everybody, right? Who was over leveraged at the time. Reframed my wealth building strategy going forward. And in the last 10 years, it's been, parabolic because of the lessons I learned during the hard time. So again, even wealth building's failing until you get it right. But I want to go back to, doesn't matter what industry you're in, real estate happens to be how we make money. And that's great. The thing that people miss about real estate is, I'll give you a couple of them. One is the IRS gives you a huge advantage if you are a real estate professional. Now, we all think that we're real estate professionals, but only about 3% of real estate agents are deemed to be real estate professionals. What does that mean? It's an IRS designation. You have to meet certain tests to be seen as a real estate professional. You can carry your passive loss activity. In other words, you can accelerate depreciation on a rental property you own and write that off against active income and pay less in taxes. So the number one expense you're going to have in your lifetime is taxes. So doesn't it make sense? Here's how my simple brain works. Doesn't it make sense to maximize our tax strategy throughout the course of our life, no matter how much we make, so that we mitigate the number one expense in our life? Number two is insurance. Same thing there. So that's a great example. The second big, huge license to build wealth that you're given when you get your real estate license is you have access to more data than other people. Imagine getting your stockbroker's license and then having a lot more data on stocks you want to invest in. It's the same in real estate. And I would argue it's better in real estate. There's better tax advantages and all those things we get into this. So when you think about being a real estate agent, it's not just about how much money can I make selling houses. It should be how much wealth can I build by being a real estate professional.
Yeah. The tax strategy piece is something that's often overlooked, but there's a famous book written on real estate success, right? That we've all read, especially being in the KW ecosystem. And if you look at the percentages allocated for lead spend, and you look at the percentages allocated for salaries and the percentages allocated for this, you were exactly right that by a large margin, your taxable amount of that income coming in is the largest percentage that you pay out, for sure. We spend more time stressing over hires than we do about tax strategy, but it is for sure the largest amount of money that you're going to spend each year.
Or how about, I'll give you another example. How about lead generation? 12% of our income should be spent on lead generation. So says the book, right? By the way, back up. That book is a great example of following a model. We don't need to recreate anything. There are people who've gone before us and they've figured out all these things. Where we get in trouble is we get super creative, and we're going to do it different because we are smarter than the thousands of people who've already succeeded at it. So the same is true in real estate, which is true in personal finance. There are people who figured this out who can help you. But yeah, go back to, I have these conversations every day. What online lead aggregator should I subscribe to? And it's $1,500 a month for this, and it's, free for this one, but with a success fee, it's all these things. And the same person who is evaluating $1,000 versus $1,500 a month is leaving $40,000 a year on the table because they're not paying attention to their taxes. They're not set up as an LLC. They're not being taxed as an S Corp. They're not paying themselves a salary. Their real estate commissions are not paid through the LLC, which is, I think, 46 states, approve that to happen. So if you're in one of the 4 that don't, there's a different strategy. But the point is, you can leave 40 grand a year on the table and then drive yourself crazy about $1,000 a month lead generation.
Right. Right. And one of them is giving away the money you've already made. Right. And one of them is chasing in an unproven, if you think of that, the online lead generation, like, best case in our top market over the past decade, 4 to 5% conversion is amazing, right? Like that's a
Illegal.
95% failure rate when you could have 100% success rate because it's law, there's tax code around it on keeping your money in this other direction. So yeah,
Yeah. On that note, real quick, and I always tell my guys, if you're going to buy any kind of leads, look at it a little differently. You're not looking for an outcome and a conversion. You're looking for how big can I build my database? So if I can spend $1 and add you to my database and create a relationship with you and be seen as the real estate expert of choice, and you call me whether you need to sell or buy your own personal house, you want to buy a rental, you want to pay for your kids' college. If I earn that right because I bought a lead, that's great. But if my whole business strategy is to pay, I know people that are in the millions of dollars a year now paying for leads, only to sell enough houses to barely offset the cost of getting the leads. And that's, again, back to our earlier story, the profit margins of top real estate agents are going down. And I see a path where they start to skyrocket up. If you're in our ecosystem, we're getting profit percentages up in the 70-80% range, where most people are down at the 10%.
yeah. Yeah, I think you had thrown out a statistic earlier. It was something around like $30,000 to $50,000 a year on average that people like following these practices are saving. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's the impact of an additional $30,000 or $40,000 a year? Like, what,
Well,
like on a family, on a business? Like, it's huge.
yeah. So we have a whole, what we call our financial board of directors. And so we've got a tax strategist, an accountant, a bookkeeper, all different people, by the way. We've got a financial planner, insurance specialist, broker, not captive. We have all these people, and we have one of these products that we put people through a complete reset, financial reset. I call it the intervention. My team hates that word, but it's literally, there's so many people who need an intervention. And I'm like, look, let's take all our resources. Let's look at this David Lewis human, and let's figure out how to maximize his income and minimize his taxes and do all these things. And so the average we put about 100 people through this, and the average is about $42,000 a year. Now, these are people who are 150 in GCI a year or higher, but almost all of them have spouses who also have an income. And so, these are 250 a year type of household earning situations. But that's a massive amount of money just by knowing the laws, understanding. And I'll tell you another thing that who Tom Wheelwright is. He's Robert Kiyosaki's,
Yeah.
accounting guy, and he's written several books on this. And there's a lot of 30,000 foot views, but I interviewed someone who used to work with him who really changed my mind on taxes. And this is probably 10 years ago. And he said, Mark, what you don't understand is the government is your partner. The government wants you to employ, if they put out a section 179 where you can write off 100% of a 6,000 pound vehicle, they want you to do that. There's a reason why they're doing it. And that kind of changed my perspective on, okay, now I kind of get it. Throughout the course of my life, if I maximize my taxes as I go, I will eventually pay a lot more in dollars to the government in taxes because I will have built a lot more wealth than if I leave that 40 grand a year on the table, for example.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So so we talked about the qualities of a successful agent.
Mhm.
What would you say are the qualities or the one or two qualities that make someone a successful like steward of their wealth or their finances?
It's this simple. It's 8 hours a month. It's paying attention because most of us don't. It's the stuff we don't want to do. And I'm right there in the bucket with this. So believe me, I'll give you a great example. I cannot stand personal budgets. I don't like them. I don't want them. I make a good living. Here's money. Let's pay the bills. I don't want to mess with it. And again, I go back to, I'm very good at understanding what my weaknesses are and hiring it out. However, my hack there is I have a full-time bookkeeper. We schedule a time every single month. I have to go through my finances. I have to see exactly what we're paying, what we're not paying, where we could save some money. My wife is just like me around the budget. So we have all kinds of tips and other people to help us. But a great example is one of her roles in our household, we call the King Incorporated household. She's the COO. And so she does our insurance review every year. And that insurance binder is about that thick for all the types of insurance that we carry. And every year she reshops every policy that we have. Because what you understand when you get into insurance is insurance companies are not covering your exposure, they're covering theirs. And so if all of my neighbors have State Farm and I go get a quote from State Farm, it will be higher than almost anybody else because one hailstorm wipes them out, right? So at the end of the day, she reshops everything. This year it's $25,000 of savings by reshopping all of our insurance. It's just another example because it's the second expense that we have, but our houses have all gone up in value on average 40%. And yet most of us are still insured at a prior value because we haven't redone our insurance on our homes in 5 years, right? The opposite is true on cars. Cars have gone way down in value, but we still have them insured way up here. So it's kind of paying attention, tracking. It's just paying attention. And I hate to make it that simple. When you study this stuff, what you find is wealthy people spend about 8 hours a month total on their entire financial picture. People who are not wealthy spend 0 hours a month. So when you think about it, it's why I have a Facebook page that we go live every Friday. It's got about 20,000 members in it. We put no muscle into building that. However, that may be coming. We want to get that group up. But at the end of the day, that's a half hour to an hour every single week. So we're basically saying, here's 2 to 4 hours a month of your 8 hours. Just come hang out with us and study this stuff. There's about 250 videos on that Facebook page. There's about 40 files, all kinds of templates. If you want to really get good at this, it's a great place to start. It's free. We're not going to sell you anything on that Facebook group. It's just a great community. And what's happened, like in all great communities, is there's about 100 people who are now diehards in that group who are spreading it throughout their communities and who are helping people on the ground. And it's a huge gift for all of us. So I think the number one thing is just pay attention. Just know where you are. Don't put your head in the sand. Final thought on this is growing up in the environment I grew up in, no one in my family had excess money. And if you did, again, grew up Southern Baptist, loved my Southern Baptist gang, but we were kind of taught in my church, if you had extra money, you give it to the church. They'll be better stewards of it than you will. And that's probably true in my household. What it led to though, is we never had extra money. We didn't go to the mailbox because there might be bills in there, right? We just put our heads in the sand and hoped it would go away, and it doesn't go away. So the thing I like to remind everybody of is you are the CEO of You Inc. And there's no cavalry coming to save you. There's no lottery win in your future. You have to adult, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I love that. Our motto has always been, we're the unluckiest team in real estate, and no one's coming to save us because if you're not going to do it, no one's going to do it for you. So I love that. The Facebook group is Welcome to the Cause, right?
Yeah. Wealth Building 2.0, Welcome to the Cause. Yep.
And I'll make sure everyone that gets this also has access to a link where you can go link up and check out the stuff that Marc's doing. Got a couple more minutes. I wanted to ask you 2 really quick questions because we could probably spend hours talking about this, and you do because you have events all over the country. We were talking about it a second ago. But what's one thing, like let's go intermediate, then we'll go more advanced.
Okay.
Someone who is either at that, they're either building their career now, right? Or they're establishing it, right? So maybe they're not new, but let's say they're south of 150K in income.
Yep.
What's the one action they should take today, other than putting it on their calendar and spending time paying attention to it? Because that was a very important piece, right?
Yeah.
What's the one action that you would recommend they take today or look into?
So I'll give you the advice that I've given about 5,000 people, and maybe 5 have taken me up on so far. But this may take a little longer. I'm going to bring in my whiteboard. I've made it this far without my whiteboard. You should be proud of me. But I will tell you, this is kind of how I stumbled into building my real estate business. But when I look back at it, I realized that it was something anybody can do. But I'm just going to give you this model. And again, models and systems, it's a little hard to see. Sorry. 110, 3, 1. This is my model for anybody starting wherever you are, increase your income. We all have one of 3 T's. We have time, talent, or treasure. When you start out in real estate, you've got an overabundance of time. You don't have much talent. You don't have much treasure if you're the norm, right? But you got lots of time. So what are you doing with your time in the initial stages? Like we're going to build a Franken wealth building real estate agent, Frankenstein. This is what it would look like. Early years, we spend a lot of time working on our craft, understanding what our dialogues should be. We understand what objections are going to come up in all of our appointments. But more importantly than that, we study our craft and we study the real estate market. So when I started before there was an organized MLS online that was required. So I would get, listing books from the MLS, whatever the case was. But I'd review 100 different investment properties to go physically visit 10 to make offers on 3 to buy 1 for one investor that I started out. And what I didn't realize at the time, I was spending this time doing all this work to maybe get a closing. So I might make $2,500 at the end of this. But what I didn't realize after 6 months of doing this, there was no one in the market who knew the market better, who knew the average sales price per square foot, who knew, the different school districts, the different tax codes, all the different things. So I became very valuable and I didn't know I was becoming valuable. So I was building this talent. And then I became known as the person to go to. If you want to make money investing in real estate, and I was in Kansas City, Missouri, home of the Chiefs. But if I built a reputation, if you want to make money in real estate, go talk to Mark. He knows where to find the deals. He knows how to get them financed. He knows, just by doing my everyday job, I started to build this reputation. So I started to build this talent. Over time, what I realized is I had one investor, but I was finding more good deals than that one. So I went to this investor and said, how about we partner? He said no. So first failure. So great. So then I went and found 3 more investors looked just like him. And I started doing 4 times this business, still selling, but I finally found someone who's willing to partner with me. And I started putting a little bit of my treasure into these properties. Now, this was a smoking great thing. And I built a multi-million-dollar net worth by the time I was 32. And then the market just collapsed, crumbled. It all went away. If I'd have done this in any other 5-year period, I would have tens of millions of dollars to show for it. I hit the lottery on the wrong side of the worst recession. I had 50% equity to value in my properties. Like I was bulletproof, except that I wasn't, because multifamily fell about 70%. The only people buying multifamily at the time were other investors giving you pennies on the dollar. But long story short is, I tell everybody who's starting out, if you just learn this process, it will serve you for the rest of your life. If you want to be a real estate investor, this is a great way to do it. But here's why I bring this up. There's not I'll skip to one quick anecdote. I got to a point where with 4 phone calls, I could sell a house. Why? Because I did so much business with investors who bought rental properties, and we started to map where they owned properties. So if you own 3 properties on the same street, and I get a lead that there's another property coming for sale on that street, I can call you, and most likely you're going to want to make an offer on that property. But I had multiple investors on those streets. And so if you can get to a point where you can make 4 phone calls and sell a house, you never have to worry about money again, right? If you get good at this one model, you never have to worry about money again. That's the first step to getting your income up. But I don't see that happening a lot. And I'm in like every city. I don't mean it to sound the way it sounds. I literally have 30 events in 48 weeks. So I'm all over the place. And everywhere I go, there's an average 150, 200 people in the audience. And I may have met 4 people, 5 people who actually do anything like this. Everyone should be doing this. I think that's the barrier to entry. If you want to be a top agent in the industry, you've got to understand your market better than anybody else. And I don't see us putting enough time into that part of our business building.
Yeah, I love that. They have a lot there, but purposeful effort, right?
Yep.
Making sure you're spending time doing the thing that increases your talent, makes you more attractive. And then by the time you get that talent up and you start to build the treasure, being purposeful about where you put that treasure and the timing and the stuff that you're doing and doing the right thing is, as we talked earlier, it's probably not buying the most expensive car. It's probably buying some sort of property or putting it in some sort of long-term investment.
Yeah. That gets on the finance side of good decisions, bad decisions, etc. But I'll go back to one other thing that I don't know if this is true, full disclosure, but I heard the other day, the average number of hours an agent works in America. And I would have guessed 2 based on what I know. Now, this is taking all agents. This isn't taking the top 10% to sell 93% of the houses, et cetera. It certainly doesn't take the top performers I work with into consideration, but it was a trick question because the answer was 22 minutes a day. So when you think about what it takes, I started out in real estate like everybody else. Why would anyone use me? They know that's part of the reason I went the investment side first is I'm this 26-year-old kid. Why would I know anything about helping you sell your family house? You probably have 10 other people who are older than me, smarter than me, done this longer than me. And so I had that same myth in my head that everybody else starts out with. The reality is that in this industry of, call it 1.5 million people, there might be 100,000 of us who work full time. And that's not a shot at any. A lot of people get into the business for that very reason. It's a part-time job. It's a second job. It's a personal family job. So you can invest in a couple of properties a year. That's awesome. But when I bring that up, here's what I'm trying to get to is that there's very little traffic in the extra mile. If you did nothing else but build a calendar and spend 6 hours a day, just 6 hours a day, that's your work day, 6 hours a day, and put the most important things in those 6 hours a day, work 9 to 3, whatever it is. If you did that, you would be in the top 1% of all realtors out there, because very few people work like that. Instead, what we do, David, is we work whenever the clients want us to work, and we take calls at 9 o'clock at night, and we don't put any boundaries up, and we do all those things. The top agents in this industry have working hours. They have a calendar. They follow that calendar. They do the same boring stuff, but it's the stuff that leads to the biggest results.
Yeah, that's great. And you're so right about that. And we said before, the favor follows the people, and favor falls on those who go out there and they work and they're purposeful about it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, with its average is 22 minutes. If you just put 3 hours of purposeful work in, you would be, 300xing your results more than likely. And I know we got to wrap here shortly, but one more brilliant piece of advice. We talked about the intermediate side of things. Let's say that we're on the other side. Say that we've built some sort of business where we're making 200, 250 plus a year, at least gross in, and we want to keep as much of that as possible. And while I'm personally not a accountant, and I don't offer any tax advice, right? We're just fans of the game, and we've learned a little bit. So we can talk about things that we've learned. What's the thing that someone should dig into with a tax professional? What's someone should look in a little bit deeper if they're on the other side? Like, what's the most obvious thing that you see people missing?
There's an inverse relationship between, especially in this industry, income earning and paying attention to details and taxes. And the reason I bring that up is our typical clients are well north of $400,000 a year in earnings, because number one, they're more likely to outsource this kind of stuff. When you're making less, and I did this myself, 30% of us do our own taxes, which is a horrible mistake. There is a million pages of tax code. There's a reason there are professionals out there, and there's a shortage of tax professionals, by the way. But a tax strategist and an accountant are two different things. And what we find, we've now reviewed 100 different cases. We found 2 where we would argue, my accounting firm would argue, they did this the right way. So let me give you kind of an overview of several different things. I'm going to talk about defense, offense, and special teams in this conversation. So defense is just knowing how to file your taxes correctly. The average accountant is doing about 400 tax returns a year, and 1 or 2 of them are real estate agents. So they're not, real estate agent accounting is a little bit different. You're an entrepreneur. How you elect to be taxed matters, et cetera. But if you follow the funnel, in most states, setting up an LLC the day you start in real estate to protect yourself is a smart idea. Getting your commissions paid to that LLC is a smart idea. Paying yourself a salary out of that LLC and knowing what salary to pay yourself is a good idea. And then electing to be taxed as an S corporation is a really important thing, because that will unlock a lot of the choose your own adventure tax strategies you take. But here, let me go at this a little bit differently. So on the defensive side of the ball, there's all the things that you should be doing to set yourself up correctly to pay the least amount of taxes that the government wants you to pay, right? That's the defensive side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball is going to be all the extra strategies you can employ if you set up your defense correctly, like the Augusta rule, like all the things you see on TikTok by 19-year-olds in their mom's basement. It's not good advice for everybody, but there's some good stuff. Be careful what you hear, including what you hear from me. You've got to build a board of directors for your finances. When you start out, you might pay $1,000 to have someone do your taxes. It shocks people when I tell them I paid $5,200 a month last year to my tax strategist. And they're like, why would you ever pay? That's ridiculous. Well, it's way less than Elon pays, by the way. But if you're taking advantage of tax strategies like accelerated depreciation and cost segregation and Section 179 and all the different things, qualified business income, all the different things that have changed, this is another huge point. 2018, We had the biggest tax reform that we've had since 1986. And that was the biggest tax reform we had since we were on the gold standard before Nixon took us off in 71. So there's been two giant sweeping tax reforms since we have not been connected to gold, US dollar, or fiat currency. All that matters is now you have to understand what the tax laws say. Most people I talk to have never heard the term qualified business income. They don't know that in 2018, those tax cuts took 20%, your first 20% of your profits are now tax-free. But most accountants are just going to give you the random average, deduction, standard deduction, and not go deeper in that. So everyone has a different fingerprint, different DNA, their income structure is different, all the different things. I'll give you one other quick example. We had always been taught and told, pay yourself the least amount of salary you can get away with. The IRS says you have to pay yourself reasonable compensation. They won't give you a dollar amount. They won't be that specific. They say reasonable compensation. So you'll see people doing $300,000 a year in net income, paying themselves $30,000 a year because that's what we were taught. Minimize your earned income. Well, because of 2018, you can now put up to 25% of your earned income into your qualified retirement. So that strategy no longer makes sense mathematically. So we have people who net 300 that we're having them pay themselves 200 because the math comes out better for their wealth building strategy. So it's a long answer to a short question. It's so nuanced and so detailed. I would say that the number one thing you can do, understand this is a journey. For the rest of your life, you're going to be on this journey if you choose to, and it's well worth it. It's also a pain in the ankle. I tell people when you're having the longer you let this go and be a mess, the more it's going to hurt to get it right. But the analogy I would give you is like my chiropractor friends tell me, if you don't ever get adjusted, the first time you go get adjusted, it hurts and your back pops funny and your neck hurts and you don't like that thing they do with your head and they do all this stuff. But if you do this twice a month, then you'll get to the point where everything just goes where it's supposed to. And it's easier to maintain than it is to let it go. The same is true in wealth building, personal finance, tax strategy, all the different things. Again, it goes back to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, who have your best interest at heart. I mean, there's a lot to go into here, but that's my best advice there.
Yeah, I love that. It really is full circle. We started out talking about surrounding yourself with people who are a little bit smarter than you and know a little bit more. And then we kind of wrap there.
Yep.
Surround yourself with people that know a little bit more, have experienced a little bit more. I would also say be careful. Don't only surround yourself with extremists, right? Like surround yourself with people who are more conservative and also some extreme. That way you're considering all angles.
Well, let me give you one thought. This is really important because I tell people, this is a little shock statement, but I tell people, I don't want you to have financial advisors, and I'm not a financial advisor, full disclaimer, but I want you to have financial planners, but I want you to be the advisor. The problem is because we don't want to pay attention, we just hand over to someone else. And that's where all the problems come in. You need to know the right questions to ask. You need to, again, know what your goals are, make sure that people are doing what you want them to do. But you should know enough to be able to ask the right questions and learn along the way. You should be the advisor. Get yourself a financial plan.
Yeah, you have to. No one's coming to save you.
That's right.
And it's interesting, you talk about taking a purposeful effort of keeping your money. We spend all of our lives figuring out how to chase money and create wealth, but we spend very little time focused on how to keep it.
That's right.
And I think that at least it should be an equal effort, right? Or at least it should be comparable on the calendar.
Yep.
All right, Mark, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. I mean, the wisdom bombs, the nuggets you've dropped have been amazing. You've got some classes coming up. Where can people follow you? I know on Instagram it's official Marc King, right?
Yep. So the cause is the new venture, and our goal is we want to change 1 million lives, and so that's our big, hairy, audacious goal. But welcome to thecause.com. You can find anything there. We've got another 20 events coming up all over the place, from LA to Connecticut. So in Alabama in there, and some Chicago and some other fun stops. North Carolina, there's too many to mention. But at the end of the day, if you can come see us, come see us. We have I would love for anybody, I tell people all the time, David, we have products from free to you shouldn't pay for them yet. But if I could give any advice, it would be invest in yourself, invest in learning, surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, know why you're doing what you're doing. You can get in our community for free, or we have coaches, we have all kinds of different products that can help you no matter where you are.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure everyone has access to those links to be able to find you. I can't thank you enough, man. Your impact on my life has been huge. your impact on a lot of people who are really special to me. Their lives have been huge. So you keep giving and you keep giving, man. So this whole thing, the first thing I heard you say years ago was success to others, and you keep being a person that lives up to that. So we appreciate you, man. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. 2025 is going to be amazing.
That's right. Happy New Year.